the thing that's impacted my success the most this year in business. So the thing I'm about to share, if you're here, say hi. Hi, guys. Hi, Laura. Hi, Jillian. The thing that's impacted my success the most this year is definitely something I think I've done in business fairly well for many years. But this year specifically, I feel like I made it a very, very, very high focus. If you're one of my clients, you know I've probably made it a focus for you too, and I've talked to you about it a lot. But I've really seen it show up this year in my business more than ever. I put a lot more intentionality behind it than ever. And so ultimately, like, just have seen the results of that. Hey, Laura. Hey, guys. Okay, so what is that thing? So basically what I call it is finding neutral in your business. So often I see so many business owners, like I feel like this is like one of the things I see the most is business owners that are making completely emotionally based decisions instead of strategic decisions. And the way to make actual strategic decisions and not constantly have your business kind of moving based on your emotions is to get to neutral before making a decision. So let me give you an example of what that looks like, right? So, you know, say you're someone who, you know, has a trigger point around not feeling enough. A lot of women that I work with, and I think women in general, have that as like a pretty big trigger point, is not feeling enough. And so what can happen is like we'll do something in our business that will make us feel not enough, or we're doing something to try to feel enough. And we're making almost all of our business decisions based on that. We're like, I should add more to my program because then it will make me feel, you know, more enough and like it's more valuable. Or like, I should over deliver and let this client walk all over my boundaries because it, you know, will make me feel more enough to serve her even more. Things like that, right? And ultimately what we're missing in moments like that is like, but strategically, does it make sense to add more to my program? Strategically, does it make sense to over deliver with this client right now? And we're not always asking the right questions. We're using our business to fix an emotion, right? Versus strategically making decisions about our business that ultimately move it forward. So if we're using our business to fix an emotion, 9 times out of 10, we're not going to be making the best decision. So if I'm going like, oh man, I'm like really feeling like shit this week and I like don't know if my program's worth it and whatever, let me add a bunch of stuff to it and really like beef it up and give this client way more. It's probably not a strategic decision, right? Like it's probably not the best idea potentially at that time to like go front load a ton of shit into your program. You know what I mean? I see that with clients so often. Like they'll come to me and they'll be like, okay, so I'm doing this program and I added this and I added this and I added this. And I'm like, but okay, strategically, why did you add that? And they were like, well, you know, I just wanted it to feel really like it was enough and like they were getting enough value. No, we're solving an emotional desire at that point. We're not actually making the strategic decision of like, does this align with the result I'm trying to get this client? Is the value a fair offer here? Is there a good reason to be putting this in there? Does that make sense? Hi, Maria. She says, oh yes, happy you're addressing this. Thank you. Laura says she sees this a lot too. Jana says she sees this. She talks about the same thing with her clients in dating. Oh my God. I love me a good dating parallel because I think they're like the most parallel. So this is totally that too. Like probably, right? Like, are you trying to like date in a way that just like solves a temporary emotion versus like, are you actually showing up as like the highest and best version of yourself? I imagine is totally a piece there. So ultimately that can impact people's businesses so much because all of their decisions are reactionary and not intentional. So, you know, it can happen on the other end too. Like you have something negative happen, like you do a live stream and someone says something shit, or you put out a program and you get bad feedback or whatever. And so instead of being like, well, strategically, what makes sense is the next best step, you're like total emotional reactivity mode. Like I'm never going live again, or I'm closing down this program or whatever. I see people do this with things like Facebook groups as another example. You know, like they feel like I'm giving so much value and I'm not getting the clients I want in return. Like, fuck this, I'm closing this thing down. Okay, maybe like strategically, does it make sense to close it down for your business, or strategically do we have to figure out how to get people converting better? But that discomfort of like staying in it when you feel like this is so uncomfortable and like, you know, I'm having a big trigger here, But being able to be like, strategically, let me stay in this and figure it out, is where most people are really stuck in business and end up building a business that looks like this, because fundamentally as humans, our emotions look like this a lot of time, right? And that's not bad. Like, I totally have my triggers. I totally have like the times where something really like fucks with me or whatever. But like, what I have done more this year than I've ever done in my business is like constantly make finding neutral my number one priority. So if it takes me a week to make a decision on something, fine. My job is to find neutral first before I make that decision, right? If it means I have to stop what I'm doing and go journal for 30 minutes to get back to like a neutral mindset, that's totally it, right? This also happens in terms of next steps with people. So it's not just problems that I see neutral be a thing in, it's like next steps. So one day I'm just doing something, right? But like one day someone's feeling like, oh, I really want to go on this vacation and I really want the money for it. So I'm putting out this new program because I want to get the money for it. That's totally not a neutral and strategic decision, right? That is a totally emotionally charged thing. Like, I have a desire, I want to get it met right now. Let me try to get it met through my business. It's not like from a place of neutrality where I don't have like this big thing hanging over me. Like, does it make sense to offer this program right now? So one example I give to my clients all the time is like, if you were the CEO of a big company and like you decided you wanted a new car, you wouldn't walk into that company that day and be like, all right, guys, time to skyrocket the sales today because I really want a new car and I want to buy it this weekend. That would be weird as fuck, right? Like, nobody would do that. It wouldn't make any sense. You would continue to show up and run the company from a strategic place. And when you got bonused out on that, you would buy the car or whatever, right? We have to start looking at our businesses from that angle. Like, our business cannot meet all of these emotional and moment-to-moment financial and needs constantly. It has to be from a neutral and strategic place, right? Laura says, such a good tip, that neutrality takes the emotional reactivity away and puts the CEO hat on. Exactly. And like, that's the place where I see people succeed the most, is when they're running their business from that CEO perspective of basically like, this is a business outside of me. Like, I'm coming in and looking at it strategically and making the decisions that make the most sense. And then like dealing with the personal shit behind it. Just like if you're the CEO of a big company and you have like a super shitty day, you're like, hey, I just can't show up and go to the meeting today because I'm like really in my stuff. Like, I am going to have to reschedule the meeting till tomorrow. Fuck no. You would just be like, okay, my stuff's my stuff. I have to deal with that shit. Like, how do I go in the bathroom and get myself in a good place for 15 minutes so I can go to that meeting? Like, if you can take that mentality towards your business and again, keep finding neutral, I'll talk about how to do that. I'll also want to share with you how to do that in terms of like not ignoring your emotions or not ignoring what feels, like your intuition or flow. I definitely want to talk about that too. But ultimately, if you can start running your business from that perspective, finding that neutral place, it will be wild how good the caliber and quality of your decisions improve. So that has really been what happened to me this year, is I found so much neutrality, I think, because I've realized so much that like nothing makes or one decision doesn't make or break our success. One offer, one yes, one no, one anything, like none of it matters. And ultimately, like, I think what this year taught me so much is kind of like, and honestly, it doesn't impact my day-to-day happiness anymore, really, right? Like, I have a business, I run a business, I am Lacey, I am over here, and I'm a happy human. Like, I've really separated the two more than I ever have and found that neutral place. Which makes running a business like just honestly fucking easy. Like, the reason running a business feels so hard for a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, is because of the emotional turmoil and upheaval that comes with it. We make so much meaning about, getting this client and what it means or not hitting this income goal and what it means to us showing up or not showing up and what it means. And like all of the drama we create when we're not at a place of neutrality is fundamentally what makes running a business really, really tough. And so if you can make neutrality the goal, running a business becomes easier. Your decisions become a lot easier, but your results also become a lot better because you're making strategic choices versus making emotional or reactive choices. If I see one thing that really makes a difference for most people is when they can find a way to bring that emotional reactivity down in their own business so that they can move forward from a strategic place, right? And so a couple other examples I would give about that, and I'll give my own here, is like even getting neutral in terms of goals, for example. So an income goal is like a really good place to find neutrality. So for me, what that looks like is I'm always wanting to check in and be like, am I feeling supercharged about this income goal? Like if I make this, it will mean I'm enough. Or if I make this, it will mean I'm a serious business owner. If I make this, it will mean this type of client will hire me. Or if I make this, it will mean my happiness will increase significantly. If I'm bringing any of that charge to an income goal, I'm not at neutral, and I'm probably not going to make really good decisions or choices or take really strategic action to hit that income goal. What I'm going to do is be really flustered and throw spaghetti at the wall because I'm going to be like, I have to hit this goal because it means I'm good enough. I have to hit this goal because it means I can finally be happy. I have to hit this goal because it means I'll get this type of client, whatever that is. All the charge comes with it. When I'm like, I have this income goal and I'm like neutral about it. Like, it's the smart next step in my business. Strategically, it makes sense for us based on the data we have. That's a really smart goal to stretch into. Whatever, it gets so much easier. So it's not just in terms of issues. It's not even just in terms of like, you know, day-to-day operations. It literally impacts every single thing in your business when you have the ability to get neutral and find neutral before setting the next goal, making the next move, deciding on how you're going to handle a difficult situation, deciding what your next strategy is. Finding that place of neutrality is like the most valuable thing that you could possibly do. Another thing that I think is really important about this is that sometimes in business, we expect our business to give us all these things. I'm sure this is what Gianna's talking about in dating too, right? So we expect our business to give us all of these things and meet like every single need we have, like meet our emotional needs, make us feel really fulfilled, make us feel happy every day, make us feel totally supported, make us feel totally abundant. Like check. We're looking for a business to fill all of these boxes that the business can't necessarily fill, right? You are ultimately responsible for filling most of those boxes yourself. And bring that neutrality to your business, which of course adds to the experience, right? Just like a relationship, nobody's going to make you feel loved, happy, or fulfilled. Ultimately, like that's on you, right? And if you bring your loved, happy, and fulfilled self to a relationship, of course you're going to have a beautiful and wonderful experience in a relationship, right? But if you don't have that, you don't bring neutrality to a relationship, everything triggers you, everything feels intense. It feels like the relationship is not giving you what you need. I've totally been there, so it's like not judgment, like hi, I get it. But ultimately it's a really important reflection because your business cannot meet all those needs. You have to work on that yourself, come to the business from a place of neutrality and watch it add so much to all of those desires, right? I think that's really valuable. So what getting to neutral looks like for me is that I'm willing to put off decisions, or I'm willing to put off goals, or I'm willing to put off setting goals, rather, I'm willing to put off making choices until I feel like I'm not neutral about something. I'm even willing to put off looking at data and numbers until I feel neutral about something. So for example, when we launched the podcast, I usually don't look at podcast numbers for about a month post season launch. So after we launched season 1, I don't think I looked at numbers for a month. After we launched season 2, I didn't look at numbers for a month, right? Because in the middle of like launching it and getting out there and all of that kind of stuff, like I'm not at neutral as much as I would like to be, because I'm really like, oh man, I want to, really impact a lot of people with this ever. I wait until I can find that neutrality to be like, cool, let me look at the numbers. Same with the decision, right? I have a really big decision to make in my business and I'm just feeling a lot of emotional charge around it. My job is to do the meditation, do the journaling, do the reflection, do the self-care until I can feel neutral enough around that to make the decision. So even if that meant like I have to make other people wait and tell them like, hey, I'm going to really sit with this and think about it and I'll get back to you in a week. that's what it's taken, and that's what I've given myself the permission to do this year. And it has impacted my success so much this year. Probably it has been by far the biggest impactor of my success, because I just don't make choices anymore unless I am at a fairly neutral, reserved place about it where my decision can become strategic, right? In the past, and the reason I've made it such a priority this year is because in the past, when I've made decisions from a not neutral place, most of the time they don't work out the way I want them to. Like, can anybody agree with that or give an example of that? Because it's true. Like, when you make this supercharged decision, you usually don't get the outcome you want, right? Or you don't show up in the way you want, or you don't handle it in the strategic way that you would have liked to, right? You're like, I feel like doing this thing, so I'm just going to do this thing, and then we'll see what happens. And then when what happens isn't what you want it to be, you're super disappointed. And you can be like, hey, I feel like doing this thing. Let me sit with it for a little bit, see what feels good, decide if that feels true, and then move from there. Like, I'm certainly someone that believes in like listening to your intuition and taking quick action. So we talk about how this impacts your intuitive piece there too. But when you can give yourself the permission, like, I don't make decisions, I don't take action until I'm at that place of neutrality, like, you still might be able to take action in 15 minutes. Like, it doesn't usually take a very long time, but the goal or the intention is, in that 15 minutes, what am I doing to get myself to a place of neutral? Am I journaling it out? Am I talking to somebody about it? Am I doing meditation? Like, what can I do to bring down the charge? Because if I bring down the charge, I can easily make a strategic decision. So even the example, like, I hear a lot of people be like, I hate video, I'm not good on video, I just don't do video, Okay, but if you were totally at neutral and video wasn't super triggering and charged for you, strategically, might it make sense for video to be the best thing for you to do in your business? Maybe, and maybe not for other people, right? You got to find what fits you and ultimately what feels the best. But if it's coming from the place of like super intensity, there's usually not a real decision to be made yet. Like, that's something I coach with my clients on all the time. Like, if they're bringing me something that feels super intense, like, I would never get on video, video is so awful, like, it's just not a thing for me, I'm not doing it. I'm always like, cool. So like, you don't have to do video, but like, what you have to do is bring down the charge around that so we can actually make a strategic decision about it and about if it like really is in alignment for you or not. But like, what we can't do is decide from that place, right? Sometimes I'll ask my clients to sit on decisions for a while, until they can get to that neutral place. But I'll tell you that it always works out so fucking well when they do, because even if the decision is like, I won't do video, they're still coming at it without all of this like, oh my God, it's so awful, I can't do it, charge. They're just like, fundamentally, that doesn't make the most strategic sense. Bingo. That's what we're looking for. When everything comes with a lot of charge, like, I would never do this, I have to do it like this. This is the only way to prove that I'm enough. The only way to be happy is that, like, all of that charge is a fucking trap in business. And it will make your business look like this all the time versus like look like this, right? Because your business is operating on your emotions and not on strategic decisions. Sometimes people can get away with that, right? I'm not saying that it won't get you any results. I'm just saying it won't get you results that actually feel really good most of the time, and they won't be as consistent. They'll be as inconsistent as your emotions are. And we all know as humans, our emotions are very fucking inconsistent, right? So if you can take charge of that, again, just like you would as the CEO of a big company, like if you were having a really hard day, you'd be like, hey, how do I like calm myself the fuck down enough to be able to show up and do my job and like make the difficult decisions that need to be made? You are going to experience so much more ease and success in your business. Hey, Stephanie, thanks for being here. Hey, Claire. Hey, Elise. If you guys are here, say hi. You're going to experience so much more ease and success in your business because of that, right? And so ultimately what neutral means, if we have to like boil it down, is there's not a lot of charge and there's not a lot of meaning, right? Meaning is really important here. So for example, like the income goal. If I've associated all this meaning with it, like hitting this income goal means I'm enough, means I'm finally successful, means I'm a serious business owner, means whatever, I'm not at neutral. There's a ton of charge there. There's so much meaning associated with it, right? If hitting the next income goal is just the strategic thing that makes sense to stretch into, totally different place, right? If not saying yes to this client's request means all of these things, she'll be mad at me, she'll probably fire me, blah, 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 right? I'm not at neutral, right? I'm associating so much meaning with this thing versus the question of strategically, does it make sense for my business to say yes to this client's request or not, right? We can get ourselves so trapped when we associate a ton of meaning to things that simply don't have meaning besides what we make of it, right? And so this is really the example of that. And this is what neutral means, is like removing all this meaning that we're putting on things and getting to a place where like we can just be like, cool, hitting that income goal doesn't mean I'm a success or not. It just means that we've grown the business to that much. Cool. It's so much easier to move forward to that. Saying yes to this client doesn't mean she's going to fire me or not fire me. It just means I'm setting a boundary that's appropriate for my business, right? We have to bring the meaning back to neutral so that we can move forward, right? And I will not tell you this is the easiest thing I've ever done, and I don't think it's the easiest thing I ask of my clients by any means, but it is by far the most, results generating, I guess I would say, because it really helps you to run your business as a fucking business and not run your business as a product of your emotions, right? So an example for me recently, of getting too neutral about something. I think I shared it on a different live stream, but I'll share the outcome of it. But like I had a CEO day planned, and it was also the holidays, and so my schedule was more tight than it usually is, and with like taking days off and things like that. And so I had a few people really schedule sales calls, and I knew I had the CEO day where my time was totally blocked, but I didn't have sales call spots for like a month out. And so it would have been really easy for me to start making a ton of meaning there. Like, oh my God, I have to schedule this call right now, because if I don't, it will mean that someone won't hire me, and it will mean that they think I'm an asshole. It will mean that, I'm not serving people in the way I should, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, listen, I just need to get to neutral about it. It doesn't mean any of those things. But from a neutral perspective, what makes the most sense? Strategically, does it make sense to take these calls, or does it make sense to honor my CEO day? Ultimately, I really needed that CEO day in my business at that point. I needed to do some strategic thinking and planning, and it simply made the most sense to honor that and schedule the calls for when I actually had space for them in a month, right? And I'm not saying it was an easy decision, like getting your brain to calm the fuck down about that and not be like, oh my God, but everyone will hate me and no one will hire me. It takes effort, it takes time, it takes energy, and it takes focus to like be able to bring that down, but it's always a worthwhile thing. That decision was such a smart one for me. That day was so productive and so important. And had I like randomly scheduled calls throughout it, I know that it wouldn't happen, right? And so my point in saying that is you're going to have a million opportunities to do this. It will get easier. For me, it's gotten a lot easier over time. But taking the actual effort to be like, no, I have to get to neutral first before I make this decision is the most worthwhile effort you can expend in your business, because otherwise you're always going to be solving an emotional issue. And it depends on what yours is. Like I said, for a lot of my clients, it's the enoughness stuff. So they run their business, right, based on solving for feeling enough or not feeling enough, or how can they feel more enough, or how are they triggered because they're not feeling enough this week. And the business can look like this. When we're like, cool, so you have an enoughness problem over here that you need to work on. Your business doesn't have one and just needs you to show up and make strategic decisions. That's when I see clients really win. Belinda says neutral really does allow for the best perspective. 100%, right? And that's why I say like mindset work is such a non-negotiable, because the mindset work is what gets you to neutral. And then from there, making strategic decisions is fucking easy, honestly. Like I think everyone thinks that the strategy piece of business or making strategic decisions is so difficult. And honestly, once you're at neutral, it's so clear. It is so fucking clear, right? It's not, they are not hard decisions. It is not difficult. None of that is true. The reason they feel hard or strategic decisions feel hard is because there's so much emotional charge to it. When you do the mindset work to remove that, and you have the right coaching support to remove that, and you have the right reflection and perspective to remove that, guess what? Strategic decisions are fucking easy. Executing super easy at that point because there's not all of these stories around it, right? And so finding this in my business, again, this is something I think I've really done pretty well in most of my business. I would say like the last year, it has been like a super big focus. And I would say for my clients, like it's always been a focus, but I feel like they probably heard it more from me this year than ever because I just see it makes such a difference. And you guys know me, like the number one thing I'm about in business is doing what works, and what works is making neutral decisions. It's always worth the time and energy that it takes to get to neutral. So let's talk about that in terms of basically like how to balance your having feelings and being a feeling human. I'm like a deeply feeling human. I totally get that. And following the flow and following your gut versus being at neutral. So for me, it looks like the dichotomy of like, it can be both. Like I can feel really triggered in this and I can sit in that for as long as I need to, but I won't make a decision until I'm at neutral. So that's number one. We don't have to ignore the feelings. We don't have to pretend they're not there. We don't have to pretend we're people that don't get triggered or don't have emotion or don't have feelings. We just quite simply do not make decisions based on them. We don't make decisions from that place, right? I think that having been able to teach myself that skill of like, I can have a feeling and I cannot act on it is one of the greatest gifts I've like ever given myself. You know, I feel like being able to have a feeling and not be reactive to that feeling or take action based on that feeling is such a tenet of success, because again, your success then is predicated not on your changing emotions, but based on like you being able to honor but manage those in a way that doesn't interfere, right? And so that's a really important piece in terms of following your gut or following flow or following intuition. Like obviously this is super important to me and my business. Like I always believe in acting on intuition. I always tell my clients like your job is to listen to your intuition. Our job is to put strategy around it. But here's the thing. Here's the kicker. And I would love to know if this is true for you guys that are listening. But like intuition doesn't feel all of this crazy emotion and intensity. Intuition usually feels like a yes. Right? It feels solid. It feels certain. It feels clear, right? Intuition very rarely feels like a spinning and a high level intense emotion, right? Intuition just feels like a yes period or no period, right? When it's like, yes, and da, 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 da. It's probably not intuition. When it's like, no, because fuck this, da, da, da. Also probably not intuition, right? So it's not incongruent. In fact, I think most of us are most capable of listening to our intuition when we're at neutral. I find it the easiest by far to actually tap into that and listen to what's there when I'm at neutral. When I'm in that heightened state, rarely am I able to really tap into my emotion. Hey, Maggie says preach. And this is true in other circumstances. Like I was speaking to Maggie about having a disagreement with my boyfriend. And I was saying like, I could feel that I was in this like very heightened emotional state, but I was able to recognize that even though I was feeling that heightened emotion, I wanted to take a different action. Ain't the easiest thing I've ever done. Let me be real. Still was feeling all of the emotions, but to be able to feel that heightened state and take a different action or pick a new thought is really, really valuable. Right? And the same is true in your business. You can be in that heightened state where like something feels really intense, but you can still pick a new thought or take a new action. And a lot of the times the action is do nothing until you're not feeling that heightened state, right? Do nothing while you're waiting to come back down so that you can listen to your intuition. For me, that's what flow really feels like. Flow is not in my business following like every emotion and calling it intuition. Flow is getting neutral enough to be able to listen to my intuition. So I really want to share that those pieces aren't aligned or aren't, what is the word I'm trying to say? Oh my God, I have no idea. But basically like those two pieces aren't incongruent with each other. They're not fighting with each other. I think sometimes when I explain the neutrality concept, if someone is like a super emotional feeling human, again, same, they can be resistant to that because it can feel like we're basically like devaluing emotion, or we're saying that they're not good or that you shouldn't have them or any of those things. And it can feel very like masculine and very not feminine. But I think it's honestly the opposite for me. Like they feel so intertwined now. It feels super feminine way to approach things. And it feels like the best way to honor my emotions, which is like there are space for them. But then I don't get pissed at myself for having emotions because I'm not making irrational decisions based on them. Right? So sometimes the reason we get so pissed at ourselves for having emotions is they make us make decisions that do not serve us best in the end, right? So we like fired that client because we were having a super emotional week, and then we end up not trusting ourselves and not trusting our emotions later because we're like, fuck, that was a stupid decision. But if we can be like, I'm going to honor how intense this is. I'm going to honor that I want to fire this client. I'm going to sit in this and I'm going to wait until I find neutral again to decide what I'm going to do about it. That's the gift. Like that really is to me like fully honoring the emotion and fully being able to trust yourself, because you're able to feel it, you're able to process it, but it's not dictating your outcomes, right? Maggie says, yes, it's discipline and total CEO moves. Right. It takes a fucking lot of discipline when you're in a reactive place not to make a reactive choice. Don't get me wrong. Like a lot of discipline, right? But again, like it's the gift where like you get to honor the emotion, right? You get to be feminine, you get to be in flow, you get to listen to your intuition, and you get to deeply trust yourself because you're making decisions from the right place. You're making strategic decisions. You're not looking for your business to fulfill an emotional need or to solve an emotional problem. And guess what? That changes everything in terms of success and outcomes because all your decisions become strategic. Even if, and this is like a funny thing to think about, even if 70% of your decisions in your business were strategic and 30% were emotional, you'd probably still have way, way, way more success. For most people, I would honestly say, like if I had to guess based on like when clients start working with me, I would say 80 to 90% of their decisions are usually emotionally based at the start, right? So I'm not saying like it has to be like 100% of the time it's strategic. I'm just saying we have to start tipping the scale. Most of us are making the most decisions from an emotional place, like literally probably 80 to 90% of them. And again, I get it. I'm like such a feeling person. I have a lot of feelings and I have them all the time. Right? Like, but I love that about myself, and it doesn't have to impact my business success. It just changes how I play the game. Right? So I really, really, really cannot stress enough how much this has just been an absolute fucking game changer for me. Again, in my business in general, but for sure over the last year. I have seen it be such a game changer for so many of my clients. So I really, really hope that you will put this to use in 2020 because I think it will serve you deeply. And with that, I just want to remind you again, Little Partner applications are due January 6th. If you are being touched by this, if you know that you need help making more neutral decisions, if you know that this is a really big challenge for you, great, that's what coaching is for, right? We all need it. That's why I was talking to Maggie about the disagreement with my boyfriend, because I'm more neutral in business than I am in relationships. Like we all need that support. Like there is nothing wrong with that at all. So like if you're feeling like this is something that's really challenging for you, by all means, like a little partnership is the thing to apply for. I'm not here to say like be at neutral all the time. And if you're not a lit up partnership, is not going to be for you. Opposite. If you're like, damn, this is a good point, I really struggle with this, great. Like that is what you need to put in your application. That's what I want to hear from you. Like, what can I help you with? Like, if this is an area that you need help with, like, this is what I'm here for. So with that, applications are due the 6th. I will drop the link after I sign off because I don't remember what it is right now. You know, I just can't ever remember those, can I? And if you have any questions about it, let me know. Like obviously here to answer any partnership questions, but also any questions in terms of neutrality and getting there. Laura says, I feel so seen. I hear ya. It makes such a difference when you like have this perspective. So I love and appreciate you all. I hope you guys have the happiest new year. Thank you again to everyone who's already filled out your application, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye guys.